Ladies and gentlemen, what you're witnessing right now out of Chicago isn't politics anymore. This is open rebellion. In fact, police officers on the ground refusing to carry out orders that they call illegal. Federal agents are under fire, and the Texas National Guard under President Donald J. Trump's command rolling into Illinois as we speak. The mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, the man with one of the lowest approval ratings in America, just tried to ban ICE from doing its job. He called it an ICE-free zone. But that order didn't just backfire. Oh, it detonated because the Chicago Police Department said, we're not following that. And within 48 hours, President Trump's National Guard was activated. Texas troops were federalized, and the entire country is watching a modern-day showdown between the White House and a rogue city government. This is not just about immigration here, guys. This is about law and order collapsing in real time and local leaders defying federal authority and a president who finally said enough. He's done. The streets are on edge. The lawsuits are flying. And today, whenever you're watching the show, we're going to break down how Chicago, once America's crown jewel, just became ground zero in a constitutional war between President Trump and Brandon Johnson. Real quick, guys, drop a Chicago yes or Chicago no if you would feel safe visiting Chicago today. So buckle up, because what is happening right now could decide how every American city handles federal power, from ICE raids to National Guard deployments. And if you think that this is going to end in Chicago, you ain't seen nothing yet. Hit the like button, subscribe, guys. I have a lot to share today. Chicago has just erupted, not metaphorically, but literally. I mean, police scanners are they're going off the chain right now. Police scanners are lighting up all weekend long. Federal agents boxed in by mobs, tear gas in the streets. And now the unthinkable is happening. We're getting reports confirming that Texas National Guard convoys are rolling north under President Trump's direct order. So what we're witnessing today isn't just a city in chaos. This is the moment President Trump drew a line in the sand. Chicago, the self-directed, welcoming city, has turned into the front line of a national showdown. And I feel for anybody who's watching or living through this right now. Comment down below where you're watching the show from. Anybody from Chicago here? Do you know anyone from Chicago? Well, Mayor Brandon Johnson, whose approval rating has cratered below 10%, just pushed his so-called ICE-free zone. I can't believe that I'm even reporting this. And I actually saw CNN saying something on the headlines just yesterday, and it was actually blaming Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson for this ICE-free zone. I was like, yo, CNN is actually abandoning Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. It is crazy. No one's behind this guy. He told his police to stand down, to ignore federal immigration enforcement, but when bullets started flying and ICE agents were attacked, his own officers said, no more of this. This is a city where the mayor's orders have lost their force. And the president of the United States' orders are now marching through the streets. In fact, the balance of power has officially shifted here. So hours after chaos broke out, President Trump, he invoked federal authority to deploy elements of the National Guard, citing that his constitutional duty to protect federal officers and property has been enforced. His message was blunt. If Illinois won't keep order, Washington will. Now, Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson rushed to court, calling the move illegal and unconstitutional. But while lawyers were arguing, President Trump's convoys, they were already crossing state lines. He wasn't waiting for permission. He was restoring order. The federal memo made it very clear. Up to 300 Illinois Guard members would be federalized, joining Texas troops already en route. Their mission? Secure federal facilities, shield ICE operations, and also prevent further assaults on law enforcement. Now, this is a direct constitutional collision here. This is a president. This is unprecedented here, guys. This is a president asserting control against a mayor defying national law. Johnson calls it an occupation. Trump calls it law and order. What do you guys call it? And so as Chicago burns with political rage, America's watching both sides, and America wants to know which side's going to blink first. Now, just days before the city exploded, Brandon Johnson signed what he proudly called an ICE-free zone executive order. So he banned federal immigration agents from using city property, parking lots, buildings, even sidewalks for enforcement operations. He told Chicago businesses that they could refuse ICE entry, and he told his own police not to assist them. But there was one massive problem here. That order violated federal law. So inside the Chicago Police Department, confusion turned into defiance. Superintendent Larry Snelling, he tried to play diplomat, but Even he had to say it out loud. CPD will not and cannot arrest federal agents. That single line right there shattered the illusion of control. The mayor's own top cop he just contradicted this man on live television. The top cop contradicted the mayor of Chicago. So this is when it really hit people. Johnson wasn't running a city anymore. He was running a rebellion against the United States government, and his officers, they didn't want any part of it. Now, most retirees, they admit the exact same thing. They don't feel fully confident in their Medicare plan. Can I get an amen if you feel like you're not very confident in your Medicare plan either? They hope that it's right, but hope is not confidence. This is why I partnered with Chapter, because their advisors, they close that confidence gap by reviewing every Medicare option and showing you exactly what works for you. Completely free for the Ron Yates community. Now, one of our viewers said, for the first time, I actually felt confident about my Medicare plan. So here's the question. Are you going to live in uncertainty, or are you going to do what most people are already doing and calling Chapter for clarity? Now, most folks, they're already dialing that phone number right there at the bottom of your screen, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. That phone number again is 909-563-8279. So the rebellion wasn't brewing, it was already underway. In fact, officers have been turning their backs on Brandon Johnson for months. I mean, they've barred him from funerals, ignored his photo ops, and just straight up called his leadership a danger to morale. But this week, it went nuclear. As ICE operations intensified, officers were caught between the Fed's orders and City Hall's politics. So when Johnson claimed that ICE had tear-gassed Chicago cops, Superintendent Snelling stepped up again and corrected him. He corrected the mayor of Chicago, guys. He confirmed that the federal agents deployed tear gas only after being attacked, and that 27 CPD officers were accidentally caught in it. That moment told the whole story. The mayor was spinning chaos for headlines while his officers were choking on tear gas. This is what I've been trying to share with you guys for the longest time. They keep trying to spin the narrative, but now they're caving to such an extent that their own people are ratting them out and exposing the corruption. This wasn't a political disagreement anymore. This is mutiny in uniform. Chicago's mayor, Chicago's police, they made their choice already. And it wasn't their mayor. It all boiled over last Saturday at 10:32 a.m. in the morning. Police received a phone call. This was a woman shot near 39th and Kedzie. She claimed federal agents that federal agents fired on her after a confrontation. Within minutes, local officers were already on the scene. By 11:30, the area was already crawling with ICE and Border Patrol vehicles. Then, chaos. A separate vehicle rammed federal agents off the road, sparking this chain reaction. I'm talking shattered glass, smashed cars, and tear gas filling the air. Protesters surrounded the agents and screamed, "Stand down." Like the people, the protesters are telling the agents to stand down. Like, what in the world's going on here? So that dispatched audio, "We're not responding over there," spread like wildfire across social media. People thought that the CPD had been ordered to retreat, but Snelling fired back. "We sent more officers. We act when lives are in danger." The message was very clear. CPD wasn't the problem. It was City Hall tying their hands. And every time they hesitated, the streets got bloodier. By next Monday night, the cavalry, it's crazy. I feel like I'm telling a wild bedtime story right now, right? So by Monday night, the cavalry was already on the move. Texas National Guard convoys under President Trump's command began arriving in Illinois, armored, disciplined, and ready to go. So their mission was to restore order and to protect federal officers from the chaos that Mayor Johnson had unleashed. Well, get this. Governor J.B. Pritzker tried to block them, calling the deployment illegal. But President Trump's Justice Department responded very bluntly. The law is federal. Order is federal. We're enforcing it, period. So eyewitnesses saw the convoys rolling past Chicago landmarks, the Loop, the expressways, the bridges. Some cheered, others filmed in disbelief, couldn't believe what they were seeing. Just rolling through the streets, right? To some people, they were liberators. To others, they were occupiers. But the symbolism was unmistakable. When Illinois refused to protect its own people, Texas did. And as those boots hit Chicago pavement, one thing became absolutely certain. The balance of power in this so-called sanctuary city had officially shifted to Washington, D.C. So essentially as these convoys started rolling in, the legal war exploded. I mean, you got Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson. They filed a joint lawsuit demanding a federal judge block Trump's order to deploy the Guard, calling it dangerous, illegal, and a violation of state sovereignty. But the judge wasn't having it. No, judge wasn't having it. In fact, no restraining order, no delay. The court simply said, we'll hear arguments Thursday. By then, the troops would have already been deployed. It was a constitutional showdown in real time, federal supremacy versus defiance. And President Trump, he knew this. He said, the safety of Americans doesn't wait for permission and certainly not from blue state governors. So that statement echoed across every network. Trump had outmaneuvered the entire Illinois establishment legally, technically, and politically. And so now with the judge standing aside, his message was unmistakable. The federal government's back in charge, whether Chicago likes it or not. So then came the media circus, of course. Yeah, the media, you know how they do, right? So mainstream media, these news outlets started blasting Trump for militarizing Chicago. Cable pundits called it a constitutional crisis while completely ignoring what was actually triggering the deployment in the first place. ICE agents were attacked. Officers were ambushed. Protesters boxed in these federal vehicles. Meanwhile, conservative outlets, anywhere from Newsmax to Town Hall to the Ron Yates channel, showed the full picture. The dispatch audio, the timeline, the chaos, the stand down confusion. They reminded viewers that this wasn't about immigration. It was about a city defying the rule of law. But for ordinary Americans watching from home, the message was rather muddy. Half the country thought Trump was saving Chicago. The other half thought he was invading it. But the confusion wasn't an accident, it was engineered. Because when the truth threatens the narrative, the media's first instinct isn't to report it, it's to bury it. So by middle of the week, Brandon Johnson's political career, his career was hanging by a thread. I mean, the man once hailed as a progressive hero now looked a lot more like a failed commander in a city under siege. His approval rating cratered into single digits, and even longtime allies were jumping ship on this guy. Inside City Hall, staffers leaked that Johnson was furious and paranoid, convinced the police union was coordinating with the feds behind his back. Now this guy's like, he's just paranoid. Meanwhile, citizens flooded social media with clips of ICE raids, tear gas clouds, and National Guard trucks rolling past shuttered storefronts. Johnson tried to shift the blame, claiming Trump provoked the unrest, but nobody believed him. Did any of you guys believe Mayor Johnson when he lied about Trump, saying that Trump started all this and that he provoked this unrest? Anybody believe Johnson on that one? So the polls told the story. Chicagoans were not buying it. They wanted safety, not speeches. And when word spread of a recall petition circulating online, backed by police groups and community leaders, even Democrats in Springfield were silent. So while Chicago burned, Brandon Johnson, he picked a fight with the very people who could save it. Probably the dumbest thing that he's ever done in his career. But then came the statement that really shook Washington. President Donald J. Trump stepped to the podium and he said, no American city is above the law. Not Chicago, not anywhere. He framed it as a defense of law enforcement, not politics. He praised the bravery of ICE, Border Patrol, and CPD officers who stood their ground while these politicians were hiding behind press conferences. Trump promised that federal officers will never be handcuffed, okay? Never be handcuffed by sanctuary policies ever again. In fact, the public response was explosive. National polls showed majority support for the Guard deployment, even among independents. Chicago residents actually called into radio shows saying, we finally feel like somebody's protecting us again. Anybody listen to the radio still? Yeah. So behind the scenes, advertisers, they were like, oh man, I don't know if we should still advertise here. But behind the scenes, advisors also hinted that this showdown was also just the beginning. In fact, it was a blueprint for dealing with every sanctuary city that defies federal law. Now, for Brandon Johnson, the political fallout was devastating. For President Trump, this was a turning point. This was the day law and order wasn't just a slogan, it was back. Now, what's happening in Chicago isn't isolated. It is the first domino in a reckoning, a national reckoning. Reports are now emerging that Los Angeles, New York, and Denver could face similar federal interventions if they continue shielding undocumented migrants from deportation or obstructing ICE. Now, Washington, specifically the White House, insiders are saying that Chicago's crisis became a proof of concept. If local governments refuse to enforce the law, the federal government's going to do it on their behalf. And so with President Trump's Justice Department preparing new executive orders tightening cooperation requirements, the message is rather clear. Sanctuary cities are officially on notice. Mayors across America are scrambling. They're trying to rewrite policies before federal pressure lands on their doorstep. And behind closed doors, even some Democrats are admitting what they can't say publicly. The sanctuary model is collapsing under its own contradictions. This isn't just about migrants. This is about who runs America's cities. And when local leaders are abandoning the rule of law, something has to happen. Chicago just showed the world exactly how fast that illusion can fall apart. So here we are, guys. Once great city, Chicago, now ground zero in a battle for the soul of the country. You got a mayor defying federal law, police officers are refusing unlawful orders, and a president who said, "Not on my watch." Folks, I don't know about you, but this is clearly a lot bigger than Brandon Johnson. It is bigger than Chicago. This is about whether America still believes that law means law, even when politics get in the way. We've seen what happens when ideology replaces accountability, chaos, violence, division. But we've also seen what happens when leadership returns, when law enforcement stands firm and a president backs them up. Right now, the world is watching to see whether this city reclaims its dignity or becomes the next cautionary tale of a nation that lost control of its own laws. So I'll go ahead and ask you, do you stand with the officers who refuse these unlawful orders? Or do you stand with the guard who came to restore order? Or do you stand with the politicians who tried to stop them altogether? Comment down below, guys. Like, share, and make sure that this story gets out, because what just happened in Chicago, it is only beginning. This is America at a crossroads. And once again, it's Donald J. Trump standing in the middle, holding the line. We'll see you next time.